are we, and why am I wearing this hat?
It's a great question on both counts. We are on Portsmouth Island, which is a deserted strip of sand in the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of North Carolina, and we have come here to tell you what it's like to spend 48 hours with the Polaris Xpedition XP 1000. In order to do that, we are going to spend every waking minute with this rig. We're going to do a little camping, we're going to do a little fishing, we're going to do a whole bunch of driving, so we can tell you exactly what it's like to live with this thing.
Look, we spend a lot of time in these rigs, but it's mostly either on the trail or short days at the farm. This isn't gonna be that. It's gonna be using these things just the way you would use them if you took them out here. Aaron, why don't you tell them about this thing? I'm gonna go put a line in the water.
This is the Polaris Xpedition XP 1000 Northstar. XP means that it's got a bed on the back instead of an enclosed cab. And just to bring you back up to speed, it is Polaris's ProStar 2 parallel twin. It's a 999cc mill with 114 horsepower. It's riding on 30-inch Pro Armor tires. It's got true all-wheel drive, a locking rear diff, and the power is fed to the ground through Polaris's PVT transmission. That is a traditional CVT with some Polaris branding on it. One of the things that sets this rig apart from something like a Ranger is that this platform came out last year as an entirely new overlanding specific UTV. Now, it's fair to say that an overlanding specific rig isn't what most people buy these things for, but it's what we use them for a lot. It also makes a ton of sense. It means that you don't have to bring your work rig out here and beat it up in the sand. You can bring this thing and camp out of it and keep your utility rig for utility. One of the nice things about this being an overlanding specific platform is that the suspension is not utility suspension. That means that it is super fun to rip around on the trail, unlike most utility rigs. Let's check out how it does in the sand.
On the company time.
Sick, how was the fishing?
It was kind of dry. Yeah, it's about 11 o'clock. I'd say we go, find a place to have some lunch, maybe set up camp and go from there.
Hell yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's go.
We have been at Portsmouth Island for 24 hours, and so it's time to give you an update on the Polaris Xpedition and what we're learning as we spend every waking minute with this thing. First of all, a few things I like and don't like. Number one being the seats. The seats in this thing, classic Polaris, they are fantastic. They're a sport style bucket, so they hug you in place. You feel supported, but you don't feel overly bolstered. You feel like you could sit in there all day and just bop up and down this island, which is super bumpy from traffic, and not have to worry about being sore at the end of the day. That's not something you can say for a utility rig. Second thing, the HVAC is great, especially when you're out here at night and the horse flies and the mosquitoes descend. You can jump in here, cut the engine on, hit the AC, and you are in a sanctuary. It's fantastic. You're a comfortable temperature all the time. What else is there to say? Sticking with the comfort theme, this pop-out windshield is the jam out here. You pop the windshield open, you get the nice sea breeze in your face, you can smell, you can hear, you can see a little bit more clearly because salt water really does gum up a windshield. It's just a really nice design touch, so we're really excited about that. And when you pull it shut, it still seals. There's none of this like janky air and water and whatever and sand getting in around the seal. When you close it, you are sealed off, which is a really cool thing considering that this could be just as floppy as they wanted to make it. There are a few issues with it. The first and the most annoying is the lack of space. Now, we tested the ADV5. It's a 5-seat ADV model that's enclosed. That was much more spacious than this. The XP, 2 doors and a tiny short bed really don't work. When you're aiming it at overlanders, space is paramount, and this just doesn't have enough. The next thing that's not ideal is the visibility. When you're in a utility rig, you feel like you're sitting up on a church pew, which has its own issues. But in this, they kind of went for that sport rig seating position, so you kind of feel like you're sitting in a 5-gallon bucket. These door sills come almost up to your eyeballs. The rear window is not spaced great to see out the back of it, and staying aimed at what's in front of you is kind of a matter of pointing and praying because you can't see anything from here down. You don't get any detail up close. So, that's not ideal. We'd love to see that improved. The third thing that's kind of getting on my nerves is the switchgear placement, especially the number of buttons that are right around the shifter. I have put this thing out of 4-wheel drive into 2-wheel drive, putting it in park I don't know how many times, and it's because the shift knob runs your finger right into the transfer case controls. It's annoying. the same thing. If you try to avoid the transfer case, you're likely to hit the throttle control button and you go from comfort to sport or sport to comfort. Either way, you get into a mode that you didn't want to be in. That is really, really frustrating. The locking center console feels like it's locked when it's unlocked and you need a separate key to get into it. Just give me, if the ignition key can do it, have the ignition key open the center console and maybe give it a little lever or latch instead of having to just yard on it when you want to get it open to get at what's in the center console. And the last thing we're going to touch on right now is that the ride and handling really takes some getting used to. You can tell that if you were on a Rocky 2 track, it would be great. The chassis is composed for that, it's sprung for that. Out here on the beach where you're going to tram line, where the ruts in the sand are going to kind of dictate where you're going, the Polaris really doesn't feel that confident and it can make you nervous driving down the beach even at a slow speed. That's our 24-hour update. We've got another day to go, so I'm sure we'll learn way more in that time. We're going to get back to camping. We'll catch you then.
Aaron, we are closing in on 48 hours
Yes,
with this machine. Now, I know you've spent a lot of time with the ADV model. You really like that machine.
Yep.
This is the first time you've really spent a sizable amount of time with the XP. Where do you stand with it?
It's interesting, Zach. You know, I think overall the Xpedition is a really good chassis. It's a really good platform. That said, the two-door XP with the short bed does not show off this chassis' capabilities adequately. There just isn't enough space in it. When you're overlanding, space is everything, right?
Yeah, you got a lot of stuff to take with you.
Right. Short bed, two-door, it's just limited space. And there are other rigs that do this.
Yeah.
You could get a Yamaha R-Max, you could get a Can-Am Commander, you could get even a Polaris General. All of those things do the same thing, and we have the same complaint with them, that there's not enough space. So that's where the Xpedition comes in, but you want the longer one? Again, I've spent time in the ADV model, it's enclosed storage, there's seating for 5, that's an overlanding rig. And this is a compromise.
I 100% agree. On that same note, the noise inside the cab is pretty brutal on this two-door model.
Yeah.
And, you know, for a machine that's supposed to allow you to get out and spend 4 or 5 hours just getting as far away from other humans as possible, which is what overlanding is all about, I'm not sure I want to spend that amount of time in this machine.
No, you really need a break. And this one does have a stereo, but that's just more noise added to the noise. You know, the noises one doesn't go away when the other gets louder. It's just more cacophonous. So yeah, that's the issue. And the other thing is, again, short wheelbase, high center of gravity. It doesn't feel as stable on this beach as the ADV that I drove out in Arizona did. That thing was steady as a rock over a bunch of desert 2-track, and this gets out on here and it tram lines a little bit, and it's just not quite as confident as you would want. So
get the ADV.
Yeah, that's the takeaway. Even you get the short box ADV, there's more space in that. So yes, Polaris Xpedition, great machine. This form factor, not the one I'd pick.
Okay, I got it.
All right, Ferry?
Ferry.
All right.
We hope you dug that video, learning a little bit more about the Polaris Xpedition. If you like what you saw, head over to utvdriver.com. We've got news, reviews, buyer's guides, everything you need to know about this machine and others. You can also check us out on social media. We're on Facebook, we're on TikTok, we're on Instagram. We want to see you there.